Welcome, everyone, to the Bee Shifter podcast. You've got John Vance here, and today I have lead instructor Erik Phillips with us. And today, a little later on today, after this podcast comes out, we will be launching a webinar on the After Action Review. And if you're not familiar with the After Action Review program currently available from Blue Card on the instructor download area or the instructor tool area, it is something that Erik has kind of shepherded along and got up and going, and we wanted to let you know about it so you can figure out whether or not it's something you could use in your department. Even if you're not an instructor, it's something for you to talk to your instructors about within your organization and say, hey, let's use this tool. So just a little bit about that today, and talking along the way about continuous improvement within your organization. So first of all, good day to you, Erik. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, JV. How you doing out there?
I am awesome. I'm here in Minnesota, getting ready to hit the road for a little bit, as we do as Blue Card instructors. So I'm looking forward to some time in Phoenix. And like you, I've got some duties with the fire department a little later on tonight. Then I'll be westward bound here pretty soon. So looking forward to that. So the After Action Review, let's talk about it from the beginning, because now it is a tool that is available for Blue Card instructors. Tell us how it started and really what's the mission and idea behind it.
Well, thanks for having me on today. I think this is something that everybody can benefit in the fire service, is having an after action. And I say that because I think everybody wants to know, how are they doing on the fire ground? Everybody has that self-reflection. So how did it start? It started back in when we started training everybody at our fire department, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue. We spent a lot of time and energy putting people through the 3-day classes. Then they would go out in the field, and the question would become, are we actually doing what we trained on? Some people were using it, some weren't using it, some were using it. Maybe it was inappropriate or they didn't understand. And there was just kind of a disconnect on, really, do we have any measurement of success based on all the training that we provided to everybody? So that's kind of where it got spun up from. And then talking with a few folks in the fire industry, had got some ideas and some input from a few people. And then the idea just kind of came about, like, hey, we can add this. This is good from one program. This is good from one program. Let's put those together in one system and really find out, how are we doing on the fire ground? This program does a few things. And I think the thing that's best about it is you're not going to sit there and argue or have a real tough conversation with somebody, because you're going to listen to the audio. And once you listen to that audio, it takes a lot of those hard conversations and make them easy. Because it's like, if I came up to you, JV, right now and said, hey, man, that was a good call, but you didn't do this, or you didn't say that quite right, or I didn't understand, the first thing you're going to do is get defensive. No, I said that. I didn't say it like that. Or no, it's just an argument of he said, she said, what I did say, what I didn't say type of argument. So with this after action, it takes that away, that element out of it, and you're able just to have that conversation based on the facts. Listen to the audio. This is what you said. This is how it came out. And what I'm finding is most time people go, I didn't mean to say it like that. But the fact is, you did say it like that, or you didn't make that assignment clear using task, location, objective, or whatever the expectation is. People want to do good, but we just make mistakes. And now we have actually a measurement to see where we need to improve in. And then it just kind of spun from there. And we've got a lot of good improvements to the program based on our Blue Card users. So we're really open to feedback, because at the end of the day, we want a product that is usable and it's firefighter friendly. So people have been using the program. The early folks on there that tested it out with us provided some great feedback on how to improve the program and things that would make it better for the end user. And we're incorporating all those things into the program as we move along.
So the actual review really starts with the initial radio report. And what I like about it is very objective criteria is used in order to check off whether you did it or you didn't. On the initial radio report, did you describe the size, height, and type of building? Did you describe the conditions? If there is smoke, where's it coming from? Is it a working fire, et cetera, et cetera? So that gives you a really good idea to start off with. And again, it's not like, Billy, you didn't do a good job on that IRR. It's you didn't hit this criteria that ahead of time we said was going to be part of the initial radio report. So, the same thing goes for the follow up and then on to assigning units. So I kind of hit the front part of that. We have command transfers. What other parts are in this review for us to also look at?
Well, I think you hit on the main ones. Initial radio report, like really, what is our expectation of our folks when they show up? So if you think of the blue card training system as a whole, start to finish, from the number one IC to ending the transfer command and terminating command, if you will, at the end of the incident, every little component is gradable. You're talking maydays, you're talking strategic shifts, assigning units using task location, objective, priority traffic, whether you find a victim, fire in the attic, status changes. It's just a recycle. You're low on air, you're changing locations, roof reports, priority traffic when you're talking about a roof report from a truck company on the roof, if they give priority traffic during a roof report. All of the things that we teach during a 3-day trainer, it's all measurable. We spend the time, energy, and money training our folks. We want to be able to measure that and say, where can we improve our teaching, or where can we answer more questions for our folks so they actually do what we expect in the field? And it really starts to identify where that breakdown is. But I think the key thing that you said earlier, and we kind of just talked about, was the expectation. Has your department truly set out that expectation of how they want them to communicate on the fire? So without setting that expectation, an after action program is not going to be successful. So I think the key thing that every department does to start an after action is to lay out that expectation clearly, and everybody is aware of what's going on.
Part of the after action process is really modeled after the continuous improvement model. And Chief Bernasini used to talk about this a lot. It's the way that a lot of fire departments are ran and operated. So we continue to get better. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the slide that's up right now. And if not, we'll put a picture of it in the show notes for you to see. But it really starts off with your best practice, SOP, your blue card training, NFPA standards, and then that's the expectation, right? You have an agreement. You start talking about the expectation within the organization. You have an agreement within the organization. Hey, this is the way we're going to operate, and this is just keeping us between the lines on the way that we're operating. What else do we have there on that beginning stage, would you say, for the after action reporting system and continuous improvement?
Well, I think everyone that's in YouTube land can see this photo. I think that if you don't know what we're talking about, I encourage you to be with us this afternoon when we talk about the webinar, because we're going to talk about this model in great detail and break down each box and how does it apply, and what have you or what can you do inside of your organization to achieve these goals that you see up on the screen. But communicating the expectation. Is it clear within our organization, the command system that we're going to use, and how we're going to do it? The second box you got to think about is train to those expectations. You can lay out all the expectations in the world, but if you don't train them to that, or they're mismatched, you're not going to have very good success on the fire ground. What is your training? Do you just do it a one and done program, which is notorious in the fire service? Or is this something that you truly do every few weeks? For departments of all sizes, if you run a lot of fires, great, you're getting a lot of practice. But for departments that don't have a lot of fires, what are you doing in the command training center to continue to train on those expectations that have been set forth? So when you have them on the fire ground, you have success. Communication has been a problem in the fire ground for years. I love asking the question in class, who has the most seniority? Usually it's 25 to 35 years in the fire service. And I ask a follow-up question. How long has communication been a problem on the fire ground? What do you think they say?
25 or 30 years.
Yeah. I just shake my head thinking, wow. Yeah. So for 25 or 35 years, whatever it is, it's been a problem. What are we doing to fix it? And with this, and I understand that communication is just a small part of what we teach and the whole process of Blue Card, but when are we going to get serious about fixing that communication piece? And that's just a small piece of the whole program, but it's all based on that training and what are you doing to put parameters on our communication style that we're using. So training is a huge portion. It can't be a one and done thing. We got to constantly be talking about it and evaluating how are we doing on that training. So when we get to the fire ground, we have success. You see that third box there is monitoring performance. And that's really where this after action program comes in. when you take the time and your fire chief or op chief lays out the expectation, your training division or whoever's doing the training takes all that time, money, and energy. Now we got to see how we're doing. How are we doing and where can we improve? That's where the after action program really comes in to fit into this model. It just really wasn't done. I mean, I've been to plenty of hot washes or after action reviews that we basically sit around and say, hey, nobody got hurt and the fire went out. Well, you know what? The fire will eventually go out even if we don't show up. That's not a measurement of success. So there's a saying, that I've heard, and unfortunately I can't give credit. I'm not sure really where it originated, but it's you can't manage something you can't measure. So how do we manage the fire ground if we have no measurement of success, whether we're doing good or we're doing bad? Your people in your organization are going to show up to the fire ground and do something. They're going to show up and act. And what happens when we line of duty death reports, but even more, we're just getting a lot of firefighters hurt on the fire ground because they're just showing up and doing something without a plan. So with a successful after action program, we're able to critique that, find out where we're doing good, where we need to improve on. Now we can start to dial in and say, what's the problem? What is standing in our way of meeting the expectation and what we were trained on that matches the expectation from the fire chief or ops chief that set out, said, this is what we want to do. We can start to dial that in and truly find out what we need to improve on. And then the last part is just holding people accountable. And in no way, no shape or form, when I say hold people accountable, do I mean get out a pen and paper and start writing people up. I don't think you're going to fix a lot with a pen and paper. I think having an honest conversation, making sure that they clearly know the expectation, we train them and they feel comfortable using the system. We monitor that performance and say, hey, you did this good, or let's improve that. That's holding people accountable. Having that conversation when before it usually goes south. So you don't ever have that conversation again because it's objective and it's what people think. We're now taking that part out of it and we can have that honest conversation with people through this after action program. So when you look at those 4 boxes and you start to break them down, we generally see a problem with one of the first 2 boxes. Either nobody's communicated clearly the expectation, or we haven't fully trained our people to really understand the system. And it was more of a one and done system, and they're not really proficient at it. So they're a little scared. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to use it. So it's usually one of those 2 things that causes a problem. When something goes wrong on the fire ground, there's 2 things you usually hear when you talk to somebody about a problem that's occurred on the fire ground. They usually say something like, well, you never told me that's what you wanted to do. Or you never trained me to that. You ever heard those 2 things from people, JV?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have.
Well, if you think of these boxes that we just talked about, well, you never told me what you wanted me to do. Well, we clear that up with the first box, communicating the expectations. We clearly talk about that. And then the other one, well, you never trained me. Well, the second box takes care of that one. We do those 2 boxes, we will start to see a change on the fire ground because they can't say those 2 things that we most commonly hear when you talk to somebody in a hot wash or after action review program. So to me, this model right here is something that every fire department should have posted up in every training room. It should be the model that we live by. And anytime that we have a problem, we should be going back to this model and saying, are we doing these things in order with the first box, communication? Communicate the expectations, to the second box. Are we training to those expectations? Do we have a way to monitor performance? And then after that, let's hold people accountable to those last 3 things that we just talked about.
And for those watching, the next box is not in green, but I think it's equally as important as the green box is the revise and repeat cycle. And as you say, Erik, this is not a one and done. This is it's continuous. That's part of continuous improvement. You have to apply this all the time if you want it to work, and not really just on the select incidents either, right? There's something that we can learn. You know, we determine, and I think this is pretty universal, but within my department, a working fires at any time we're pulling a line off a truck. So, you know, if it's food on the stove and you know, you're taking a pan outside, or you're putting a couple of gallons of water on something through a pressurized water can, maybe that's not worthy. Maybe it is of a critique. But what we said is every time we're pulling a line, we're doing one of these after action reviews because there's something we can learn about it. And I think the other scourge of the fire service sometimes is, oh, the fire went out, everyone went home, we'll come back and do it again without really learning from it. And then people have the same frustrations the next time you have that incident, whether it's like the water supply didn't get established in a timely fashion, or the rapid intervention bag didn't get thrown to the entrance, or whatever it is. There's frustration. And it's like, well, yeah, because we never identified it or trained on it afterwards. And those are very much on the task and tactical level. But, even on up to the strategic level, when I've done after action reviews, we certainly have criteria through Blue Card to try to guide us. But now with this tool, it's very easy for someone to get in and upload. Well, so when I say it's easy to get in and upload, let's right there start to tell people how the system works. Not only do you have the grading criteria, you also have the ability to have audio, video, pictures, command worksheets, all that. So tell us a little bit about that and how that works.
Yeah, one thing you said in there, I think it's important to kind of hit on. I didn't do a very good job in the beginning explaining that. So when should you do an after action program, a review of an incident? That's going to be dependent on your department. But here's what I want everybody to leave this podcast with. We need to be doing them frequently. Now, what does that mean to your organization? You have to figure that out. We have departments, 50, 60, large departments to one station departments, volunteer, combo, and everything in between in the fire service. So when I talk about this, I'm going to give people ideas, little tools for the toolbox of when to employ an after action. But whatever you take from it, what I want you to do is do these frequently. What I mean by that, you should be doing a couple of these a month, depending on the size of your organization and how many fires you go to or training events. So if you go to a couple fires a month, you might have enough data and running calls that you only do it on working fires. If your department only goes to a fire, like in my little volunteer department here, once to a couple times a year, then we probably need to conduct these in the CTC and record them and evaluate ourselves to see how we're doing on a quarterly basis, for example. But every month you should be doing something using this after action, so you start to get data in and know what you can pull out of the program and where it needs to drive your training. The days of bringing us in and talking about initial radar reports and not having any data behind it for your organization, I think are over. Nobody wants to come to training and talk about something, well, I think we need to get better at saying strategy or air management, because we just don't. We're like, no, we do a good job at that. But through this program and recording that information, you'll be able to start extracting that data. So bottom line, after actions need to be done frequently, a couple times a month for every organization, no matter the size. You brought up like, what information do we put in this? Well, this program is going to be as good as you want it to be. In the webinar later today, we're going to talk in detail, and we're going to have a 4-part series breaking down this after action so people get the most benefit out of the program. Some of those things that JV mentioned earlier is you're going to upload the audio, and you're going to splice that into small sections. So just for the initial radar report, just for the follow-up, assigning units, transfer of command, strategic shifts, all of those little components are then broken up into small radio segments, and then you grade them based on the radio traffic that you have clipped in there. You can also upload video, so dash cam, helmet cam, pre-arrival footage from neighbors, or there was one incident that they had drone footage well before the fire department got there, to include when the fire department showed up. So you're able to upload video to this. That is a huge thing, because as an officer, when we show up, we're making decisions. And if I can provide some content to the having video of what I saw, that will help dictate, well, I did this because here's what I was seeing. And now you can talk about the critical factors of that incident, all of the critical factors of starting down that road of using the strategic decision-making model. You can upload PDF forms, SOPs. So if your department, for example, has a policy on accountability, but you are not doing it, I would upload the SOP that applies to whatever the subject is we're talking about. And now you can have that review. Hey, review this SOP. This is it. I don't know if you know about it, but here it is. Let's read it and apply to this instance on here. You can also upload a tracking worksheet, whether that's a handwritten one or any PDF form that you can print off and upload. You can do that. So now I'm looking at it from a strategic standpoint. How are we doing our tracking? Other people can see good ways to keep accountability on the strategic level, and you can see some bad examples. Now you start to pull that data together and you're like, man, we can do better on the fire ground. And here's where we're going to improve. And here's why. I think people want to have good examples in their organization of radio traffic, and they want to hear some examples that maybe aren't so good. That way they now have a guide on what they should be doing on the fire ground. One of the other cool features, two other things I'll mention real quick, is that for the initial radio report for IC1 and IC2, it asks for a name for who did that. And the only reason we put that in there is for recertification in the blue card system. So now every time that you run a fire, you put the incident commander's name down. That counts as a checkoff during their 3-year research cycle for running that incident in IC1 and IC2. So I think that's going to be a feature that will be a benefit to some organizations when they talk about the recertification process that they use going forward. There's one other thing, JV, but it brought out my mind.
I might come back to you in a few. I think one of the advantages of having a program like this that is actually solidified based on criteria, and once in a while, I think about these keyboard warriors that hate blue card, and they have all these reasons why. And I think there's a small faction of them that have probably been beat up with blue card. I think it's been something that has not been either rolled out appropriately and truthfully within their organization, or somebody used the criteria blue card to beat them up because they're just a jerk to begin with, or they've had other problems with them in the department, so they're going to use blue card as the criteria to beat them up. So that's not what this is about at all. Continuous improvement means we all get better together, and I think in the spirit of Bruno, that's really what he was looking for. Is not for us to, sometimes we have to speak the truth. Sometimes you got to tell people, hey, this is the way it is. But you do that in a way that's productive, in a way that's going to help not only that company officer grow, but also the whole department grow. And you don't use it as leverage because you have some other beef with somebody within your organization. Am I saying that right, Erik?
I couldn't agree with you more. When we started rolling this out in Vegas and we went through the system, the 3-day training, I couldn't believe the amount of officers that wanted to hear how they did on a fire that they just ran. And they were asking for the radio traffic. So that was a big driving factor. I believe everybody comes to work and wants to do a good job. I think they do. They want to run a fire that is efficient. It sounds good. We're putting people in the right tactical places based on the 8 critical factors. People want to do that. But we just have no measurement of if we're doing good or bad besides somebody's opinion. So what you just said, this program takes all of that out of it. It's not if I like John Vance or not, or I don't like Erik. He made me mad last shift, so I'm going to get back at him. It's not that, because you got the radio traffic, you got some helmet footage, you got some dash cam footage, whatever. Let's load it up. And here's what you said or didn't say based on that expectation. It's not if I like you or not. It's unfortunately just based on what you did. And once people start knowing that, hey, this is a system that we're going to use, and they see that it's not punitive, that we want to just have that conversation, and I care about you, JV, so I'm going to have this conversation because I want you to do better, or you want me to do better, so you're investing in me as an employee, I think you're going to have very good success in changing that culture that it's not punitive. If you think about EMS, we do this all the time in EMS.
Every month. Yeah.
Well, what's any different on the fire side? There isn't a program. There isn't a committee that looks through this. We all say we care about our people. Well, what does that really mean? It can mean 1,000 things, but one of the things it can mean to me, at least, is that I'm taking the time to invest in them, to make them better on the fire ground. When they go in the IDLH, I want you to come out. I want you to have a good outcome from that fire. That fire is trying to kill us every time. If we do something wrong, it's going to take advantage of us. What are we doing for our people that we care about to make sure they have that round trip ticket mentality that we go in and we get to come out together?
All right. That just scratches the surface. We're going to have a lot more later on today at 1 p.m. Eastern time on our webinar that is going to be available. You can sign up for it still. today on Thursday. But if you missed it, it is going to be on our YouTube channel too, so you can look at it there and learn more about it. There will be other installments of it because this first webinar is really an introduction to how to use the module and the different tools that are available to you as an instructor. But we're going to continue to grow this. And we just wanted to give you an intro today here on the podcast to let you know what to expect, or if you have some questions or you see us talking about it, you really understand what it is. Did you have anything else on the after action review?
One thing that I didn't mention, and I think it's a huge part of it, is the data mining. So everything that you put into the program, you will be able to get data out of it. What do I mean by that? You're going to get percentages of what is your overall percentage on initial rating reports, follow-up reports, transfer of commands, task location objective, strategic shifts. All of that information, that every question you fill out is gradable so you can get the information. So you can say, what does A shift score? What does B shift score based on our training and expectation? And then you can break that down even further as inside of initial rater reports, where do we need to improve? Why are we not getting that 100%? And we can really start to dive into really what's the problem, because now we have that data. Strategic shifts, hopefully you're not doing a lot of them, but if you are, how are we doing? Where do we need to improve specifically inside of our expectation of doing a strategic shift? Because you're evaluating it and you'll be able to mine all of that data out of it. So the data mining, besides the audio and the video and answering the questions and the color coding to the after action, all visual engagements when you're looking at the program, the data mining is going to be huge for everybody. From the fire chief to the ops chief to the training division to us on the floor, where specifically can we get better? So look forward to the data mining. I think that's a huge part of the program that people will benefit from.
Well, this is a fantastic tool that you guys have added to Blue Card. I know I appreciate it, and it's something that's an added value. If you're an instructor, you'll have access to it. You do have access to it today. I mean, there's several dozen, probably more than several dozen that have already entered reports and they're using the system. I know my department is. So we appreciate you doing it. And this isn't some third-party software that came in. This is something that was developed specifically for Blue Card. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And it's just part of being in the Blue Card system. You get it. Do you have a few minutes for a timeless tactical truth?
Sure, let's do it.
Timeless tactical truth from Alan Brunacini. And today's is preparation beats improvisation. A good IC has a plan before the first tone sounds. Boy, isn't part of us critiquing what we do and actually reviewing it part of that plan?
Oh, I think so. I think we have the plan. We have the outline. We have the algorithm using the Blue Card system for incident command. The one thing we have to do is plug in those critical factors. So you kind of mentioned those keyboard warriors, right? It's just this script that we're saying. It's so much more than a script. It just gives us the outline. It's the plan before the first tone sounds. But really, it's those critical factors. I'm going to get there. And we want to create thinking officers. Inside of that plan is everything we have to use to evaluate the scene to make better decisions. So great tactical truth, man, hits home in exactly what we're talking about. But if you don't have a plan before the tone sound, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to do whatever feels good and sounds good at the moment. But that plan, everybody has a plan. And you just use those critical factors within it to make good decisions.
All right, Erik, thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you a little later on today on Thursday on the webinar. And if you're unable to join us on the webinar, you can still sign up and get the video a little bit later on or watch that video on YouTube.
Thanks, JV. Have a good day, buddy.